And although Prime Minister Modi was the official guest of honor this Thursday night, it was President Biden's son Hunter who also turned heads. He mingled in the crowd just days after news of his plea agreement with the DOJ set off a political firestorm. He is expected to plead guilty to 2 misdemeanor tax charges and will admit to illegally owning a gun. If a judge accepts the terms, Biden will likely avoid prison time. But outraged House Republicans blasted that agreement and vowed to continue investigating the president and his family.
As it continues to show the two-tier system in America. If you are the president's son, you get a sweetheart deal. Now, this does nothing to our investigation. It actually should enhance our investigations.
But Attorney General Merrick Garland has rejected accusations that Biden received any special treatment.
Some have chosen to attack the integrity of the Justice Department by claiming that we do not treat like cases alike. Nothing could be further from the truth.
This also comes as 2 IRS whistleblowers have alleged that the investigation into Hunter Biden was repeatedly interfered with to favor the president's son. So a lot of political intrigue going on here right now. Weijia, were you surprised that Hunter Biden was brought to this state dinner the same week that he had this plea deal announced, that they didn't hide him away? He was welcomed with full fanfare.
No, I wasn't surprised. And, the White House's response to this was that, this is still the son of a president. And I don't think that the strategy right now is to run away from it. I think they want to show that he is, a real person, that he is unlike some of his Republican counterparts who the Republicans have been trying to compare him to. He fesses up. He admits wrongdoing, and there is a clear separation between the White House and the DOJ. At least that is what the Biden team is trying to portray. And so I think, it made sense to me that they didn't want to hide him.
Right.
Because they didn't want to have an appearance that he, had done something even further wrong, because
right.
They wanted to move on from this. They wanted to show that he is, in fact, trying to rebuild his life after years of addiction, which is also something that they are very willing to talk about.
And I think also Joe Biden is in this position of having to respond to this personally and politically. And I think Joe Biden, the father, is always going to take first bidding over Joe Biden, the politician. And when he looks back at this, this is incredibly painful for the president. And I think him showing to his son, to the world, come to dinner at the White House.
You still have my embrace.
Exactly. It's not just sending a message to the world, to his political opponents, who are clearly going to do their best to try and keep this in the conversation. They think there's a lot here left to be investigated politically, even if criminally. The Republicans' charges have not been substantiated at all by this agreement, right? They're not bringing any criminal charges linked to Hunter Biden's business dealings. But the president, I think, is responding first and foremost as a devoted father who has stood by his son through struggles with addiction and has always said that he supports him. So he's not distancing himself from Hunter Biden, but he is distancing himself from this investigation so as not to fuel the political fire.
I thought if you had written a movie script that had that state dinner with the president's son who just admitted to wrongdoing, the 2 House Republican leaders who are pursuing him and the president, and the attorney general who is trying to avoid the whole mess all at this same dinner, somebody would say, that could never happen. But the Republicans, no matter what Hunter Biden agreed to and admitted to, the Republicans were always going to say that this is a 2-tier justice system, that Trump is being treated differently than Hunter Biden. And with these whistleblowers, now they've finally made a little headway. This is really sort of the first time that they've seemed to have some credible, we'll see how credible.
These are 2 whistleblowers who have come
from
forward,
the IRS,
who have said that the investigation was hampered, that there were delays, they slow-walked it, they gave Biden's lawyers heads up when they shouldn't have.
And that they finally have a little something to grab onto, that there was some unequal treatment and that Hunter Biden wasn't treated the way a normal person being investigated for tax fraud was. However, it's still about Hunter Biden. It's not Joe Biden. They're trying to drag Joe Biden in that, as you saw Lauren Boebert there say. But they still So there's this new transcript of I think it's a text message that he's supposedly having talking about his father. Hunter Biden's lawyer came out today and said that Hunter Biden was speaking only for himself, no one else in the family. So we'll see where they can go with this, but it's obviously not going away. They're going to continue this all the way through the election, but they still haven't really made the direct link to the president, but they're going to try very hard to do that.
Mary, this text message that Carl is talking about is a text message where Hunter Biden is speaking to, we believe, a Chinese official, and he's basically saying, I'm sitting next to my father. This is when Biden was no longer vice president and was not president yet. But he's saying, I'm sitting next to my dad, and if you don't do this deal with me, in essence, there's going to be hell to pay. Do you think that that adds to the Republicans' case that there really is more here?
They certainly are trying to make that point, right? This is this alleged WhatsApp message between Hunter Biden and someone that he was doing business dealings with in China, frustrated, obviously, that they weren't moving ahead with some energy deal that he was hoping that he would be able to close. And to Carl's point, the Hunter Biden's lawyers, the White House have all said the president knows nothing about this. There was no connection to the president, then former vice president, who wasn't in office at the time. This also was a time when Hunter Biden was heavily addicted to drugs, through his own admission. But I do think Republicans are certainly going to try very hard to do whatever they can to keep this in the conversation. What will be interesting to see is whether we learn any more from the Trump-appointed prosecutor, David Weiss, who, I think there are many questions about, obviously he looked into all of these things. Did he know about this WhatsApp message? Was this something that he was looked at? Why didn't he bring any criminal charges linked to Hunter Biden's overseas business dealings? And the Attorney General, Merrick Garland, was asked about this today, and he said he would support David Weiss testifying at some point or commenting about this when it was appropriate. So I do wonder if at some point we may get more transparency that may answer some Republicans' questions, just clear things up in an attempt just to sort of air it all out.
He had written a letter to Jim Jordan in Congress saying, I had full discretion to make the decisions here. Now, there's some question whether that is true, but he put it in writing. So there's a lot to disentangle here, but I think the Republicans are going to keep at it, and they moved slightly towards impeaching the president.
Right.
Well, trying to connect the dots between Hunter and his father is one thing, but I think the other thing you're seeing here from Republicans is just really trying to chip away at President Biden's credibility, because he has already said so adamantly that he knew nothing about his son's business dealings, and this particular text message would show otherwise after, the president said he didn't know, and then the White House officially said that the president didn't know. And so they're trying to paint this picture of, he actually did know and lied about it.
Right. And there's still no evidence that Joe Biden was sitting next to Hunter when that text was happening. We just don't know that, and maybe that's another line of investigation. The other argument that the Republicans keep making, which is that this is the weaponization of the DOJ, and that this is President Biden directing Merrick Garland and his DOJ to target his rivals, Donald Trump principally. Although we saw in your own paper, Carl, that remarkable report showing how the DOJ under Merrick Garland was very reluctant to open an investigation about January 6th and then President Trump and any of his colleagues were involved in all of that. So do you think that argument will continue?
Yes, they will continue, but Merrick Garland is a very conservative person, and was, a lot of people think he was way too reluctant to do several investigations and move too slowly. But, both sides are speaking to their base. The Republicans are just they need to keep their folks focused on Merrick Garland, that Donald Trump is being treated unfairly no matter what's going on in the courts. And so, they're going to stick with that.
Mary, do you have a sense of what the next step in the investigation for the Republicans is? Is it more of this pulling at these threads, or are there other things you think they're going to pursue?
I think they're going to pull at all the threads they can pull at, right? So whether there is more to what was released in these transcripts from these whistleblowers, I think they're going to look through everything that they can, just simply to keep it in the conversation. Because, and to Weisha's point, just because something may be, inappropriate or amoral even, doesn't mean that it's criminal, certainly, any kind of behavior. It also doesn't necessarily link it to the president. And of course, Hunter Biden was not in the administration. He's not running for president. He's not on any ballot. But it doesn't matter, I think, in a lot of ways when it comes to just the optics of it and trying to keep this alive in the conversation. Because as long as Donald Trump is having the legal challenges that he's having, if they can continue to talk about Hunter Biden and keep that conversation up, I think politically they feel that there's still a lot of opportunity here for them to keep up these political investigations.
Well, remember that
certainly as we go towards
Kevin McCarthy
November.
got in trouble for talking about how Benghazi, the Benghazi investigation, was a benefit because it served its goal of lowering Hillary Clinton's poll numbers. So Kevin McCarthy has some experience in this area.
And on the flip side of that, I think you're going to continue to see the White House just try to distance themselves as much as possible, while also reiterating that the president has never discussed this investigation with Merrick Garland. They're doing everything they can to try and underscore the fact that they believe in the independence of the Justice Department. But you have these two very different conversations going on where the president is doing everything he can to look presidential and just keep going on with the day job while all of this is playing out to try and just make it look like the Republicans are being chaotic while he is governing and being presidential. That's their strategy in tackling this and their campaign strategy writ large.
Weijia, do you have a sense of, inside the White House with the Bidens themselves, how this plea deal that Hunter took sits with them? Is it an exhalation? Is it a moment of relief? How are they seeing it? Just in a few seconds we have left.
I think that there are certainly reports that the president was relieved. And I think that overall, the bottom line is, these are federal charges. And it is remarkable that a president's son is pleading guilty to them. But they, to Mary's earlier point, are not what the Republicans had wanted or expected to come out of this investigation. And so I do think that there is relief because it shows in their mind that there is no there. Of course, Republicans would say something very different and say that the DOJ is just covering up the there. Right. But I think to your question, yes, the White House can say there are no charges that...
Excuse me, I'm sorry, we've got to suddenly wrap. Thank you so much. I want to thank everybody here for joining us tonight. Thank you so much for being here.